right. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tyler Ford. I am Senior Director of Mentors with Tennessee Achieves, and I am joined today by Ben Sterling and Chrissy D'Alejandro from our team, as well as Baylor Williamson, who are all going to take some time here today to kind of talk you through starting off as a mentor and talk you through, honestly, what your initial bit of connection with students looks like, how you can set that up for success. And then we're going to address some common mentor frequently asked questions and, quite honestly, misconceptions that we see, especially as you start off serving students. What I'm really excited about is, we are really in the thick of it now. We are running our in-person meetings. We are getting you as mentors paired to students. And we're really kicking off the year serving the class of 2024. And so grateful to everyone who has joined on today's call to learn more about your role as a mentor, and excited to get things kicked off. Just a couple quick housekeeping things that I want to cover here at the top. First of all, you will notice you are muted during today's webinar, and that's simply to allow for clarity, allow for us to present on today's content, but we do have the opportunity for you to post in the chat, as well as to post in the Q&A box any questions you may have. And I encourage you to do so. We've got time set aside during today's webinar to address your questions, to address those common themes that we've got popping up. Ben, who you can see on your screen here, is going to join us here a little bit, hop in and ask us some of those commonly asked questions. So please post your questions, because a big part of today's webinar is addressing those questions. And again, we will have a recording that we'll distribute of this webinar. So if you do have to hop out early for any reason, certainly feel free to do so. We can get you that recording, and we can make sure you get the full content of today's meeting. The final piece of housekeeping that I do want to cover is your student lists. Many of you have already received your student lists. We sent them out in mid-December, and you are well underway in your time serving students. There's also probably a group of you that has not quite gotten your student list yet. What I can tell you is we are finalizing your student lists today, quite literally just before this call. I was double checking things, and then we expect to have them out to you, if not today, no later than end of day tomorrow. So everything on this call is still super relevant to you, because you're going to be working with students here in no time at all. So know that those student lists are coming. Know that if you need your student list resent, you can reach out to us at mentors@tnachieves.org, and we'll be happy to resend that your way. But enough with housekeeping, enough with those details. I want to jump right into some of the really important material of today's meeting. And the first thing that I want to talk about is establishing contact with your students, getting in touch with your group. If you've already gotten your list, if you're about to get your list, the most important thing you can do as a mentor is get in touch with them. Send them a text message, send them an email, give them a call. Try all three things and introduce yourself to your students. Because what we find is the earlier you reach out to your students, the more you reach out to your students, the more likely they are to respond, quite honestly. And one thing I would recommend as well is that when you reach out to your group, you make one of your first priorities setting up a meeting with your students. Because while you did just attend an in-person meeting at the student's high school, you likely didn't meet face-to-face with your actual assigned students. And so finding a time here in the next few weeks to meet them for coffee, meet them for dinner, meet them for pizza, or at the local library is important to setting a positive and, quite honestly, constructive tone to your time with students. A lot of times when you're just texting with students, or when you're only reaching out to them from behind a phone, it can feel a little bit distant. And so having that in-person meeting, or even having a phone call with your students, is going to help to break down some initial barriers so that you can have a really connected, really meaningful mentor-mentee relationship for months and months to come. Many of you have received an email from us outlining some initial connection tips. One thing I want to stress: if you are looking to have an in-person meeting with your students, one of the most important things you need to keep in mind, and one of our best practices, is that you meet in a public forum with your students. Meet with them at a coffee shop. Meet with them at a local restaurant or at the public library. If you'd like as well, Tennessee Achieves is happy to provide guidance and happy to help set up an in-person meeting at the student's school for you. all you need to do is respond to the email that we're going to share with you and reach out to us. And Baylor, who's on our call today, will help to get that set up for you, and we'll reach out and establish connection with the school. So setting up an in-person meeting is a really valuable opportunity to set the right tone for your time as a mentor and to allow for meaningful communication and connections for the months to come. Because ultimately, if you want to support students in going to college, and if you want to help them realize their full potential as a college student and in their career and pathway to the workforce beyond that, setting up meaningful conversations and having that dialogue with them now is going to be the path to do exactly that. And that's kind of where I want to move next. It's what does it look like to connect with students on a frequent basis, and what are some of the best practices for that? And that's where I want to bring in Chrissy, who has helped to, not helped, has really set up this program many years ago now, and has a lot of great expertise and perspective that she can lend to this conversation. And I want to talk about some communication best practices, right? Because that's the name of the game. It's communicating effectively with students, it's having a dialogue, and it's setting up meaningful conversations. And so the first thing I want to talk about is how to reach out with students. And Chrissy, that's where I'll throw it over to you in asking, what's the best way to connect with students? What's the best communication tool that our mentors can rely on?
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Great. And thanks to all of you for raising your hand for this important role this year. And I appreciate your flexibility as we lean heavily into our value of try a lot of things and keep what works. We're very entrepreneurial at Tennessee Achieves. And so for years, our mentors have said, I really just want to work with students who say they want a mentor. So we're giving it a go this year. And much like everything else here, we will measure, we'll get your feedback, and then we'll move forward the following year, hopefully being a bit smarter about this particular component of the program than we are today. So again, appreciate you being here, appreciate your flexibility. The first thing that I would say to any mentor, this is my almost 17th year with the program, is not to let the 17-year-old hurt your feelings. So, and what I mean by that is you're going to pour effort into connecting with these students. And I do believe that communication this year with students will far outpace in terms of the dialogue back and forth with students, simply because, again, students are raising their hand this year for a mentor than we've seen in the past. To be honest, and for those of you who've mentored, you know this, like if you were assigned 8 students, it quickly became a numbers game for our mentors, where it was like, well, I'm only hearing from 2 students and I have 8. And so my odds are not great. And so I stopped communicating with the 2 because I thought I would hear from all 8. And so this year, we're going to assign you students who are saying, yes, I want a mentor. And our expectation is that communication, that dialogue, if you will, back and forth between student and mentor will see an increase. But from my perspective, number one is don't let the 17-year-old hurt your feelings. If you reach out and they're not connecting with you quite at the rate that you would hope, know that that is normal. If any of you have kids, you know that communication skills it's not their strong suit, especially in timeliness of response. And so I would say hang in there, continue to reach out to the student. I think reaching out to parent or guardian first is always a smart idea. We provide that information to you, and introducing yourself. Like you could do that via email, you could do that via phone call or text message. My name's Chrissy. I'm your student's assigned Tennessee Achieves mentor. I'm going to help them navigate to college. Remember, this student does not need to be on the path to a community or technical college or considering Tennessee Promise as their only option to utilize me as the mentor, because the end goal at Tennessee Achieves is to get students into their best fit college. This is not sending every kid to community or technical college. It really is about getting students to their right fit institution. And so I think introducing yourself under that umbrella would be incredibly important. So a big broad sweep around the word mentor. You're there to encourage, you're there to be a resource, you're there to help if they do choose to retain their promise eligibility. And I would argue every student should, even if they're off to Vanderbilt. It's to keep them on track. And so my suggestion would be to use text message, especially in that introduction space to the student, making sure that you let them identify yourself as their mentor, that you are there to help them. And I would ask them very specific questions to answer, not binary questions, yes or no, but very specific questions so that you are more likely to get a response. Showing up to that meeting is really important so that you can talk about the meeting and information that you've heard at the meeting. And then I would also ask them when you guys can connect. So whether that's in person at the school, whether that's at a local coffee shop over pizza. Randy Boyd, our board chair, takes all of his students out for pizza every year. I think that's always a really great idea. He also invites the parents to come along. So that, a tip from Randy about how he kicks off his mentor-mentee group sessions. But those very specific questions are going to get you places, and then scheduling time to say, and we see this in our coaching model that actually happens during that college semester, that college journey, especially that first semester, is scheduling time with the students in the beginning really does matter.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, and Chrissy, a couple things to add on there. One of the things that's been most exciting for me, and I've heard this from some of you likely on this call, is that this year you're hearing from students maybe even before you reach out to them because they're getting your contact information really quickly, and that's exciting because that's a student who is eager to work with you, eager to be supported by a mentor. And I think that all of that is very, very true. I think texting students is important. I think there's oftentimes too a misconception that you can't email them or you can't call them. And absolutely, I think texting is your most effective tool. It's the most likely to garner responses. But if you do want to send them an email, that's okay. I always recommend, though, you text them and say, hey, I sent you an email today. Go ahead and check it and let me know you got it. We want students to get in the habit of checking email. We want them to get familiar with that tool, and that's a great way to do that. So you can email, but texting and flagging it for students is really important as well, I would add. Chrissy, do you think that mentors are working in smaller groups this year? Should mentors be group messaging their students? Should they be messaging them individually? What's the best practice there?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. I would try to establish a relationship with the student one-on-one first. So you actually get to know the student, right? Tyler and Ben, who I know very well, are very different people. And so getting to know Tyler as an individual and then getting to know Ben as an individual, that would be an incredibly important, I would think, first or second or third step of this process. And then the group text can come, especially around reminders. Have you submitted your FAFSA? Have you completed your community service? Or, hey, did you know that the local animal shelter is a great place for you to complete your 8 hours of community service? All of those sort of announcement type components of this job, the resource part of the job, if you will, I 100% think can happen over group text. But the relationship building, that encouragement piece, I think should be individualized to the student and will increase your chances of success of actually making those connections.
I think that's exactly right. And I think that especially when you're trying to meet with your students initially, setting up a group meeting is 100% absolutely okay. I think some students may feel more comfortable coming to meet with coffee if there's other students there and it's more of a group setting. You may find, though, after that initial meeting that some students are really willing and eager to have a follow-up and to continue connecting with you. And so that's where that individual opportunity really comes into play, both in how you communicate with your students and how you meet with them. I would add too, as we talk about messaging with students and meeting with students, let's make sure that when you meet with your students or have a call with them, set up the next opportunity to meet while you're on the phone with them. Locking that in and getting that committed is going to make it much more likely you continue to have that conversation and the student responds and engaged for that future meeting. Chrissy, I want to talk just a little bit about college choice and how that impacts our mentors' relationship with students. As our mentors connect with students, they're going to find some students are not planning to use Tennessee Promise, which is absolutely okay. How should mentors navigate that path? And if a student isn't using Tennessee Promise, does that mean they stop reaching out to them altogether or keep reaching out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So remember, in years past, we really tried to reinforce this message, but now more than ever, I think what I want to reinforce to all of you is students have asked to work with a mentor. So they are expecting communication from you. They are expecting you to reach out to them, and they're looking forward to having somebody to be in their corner as they're transitioning from high school into post-secondary. So I think it's absolutely critical that you realize your role is to encourage students regardless of the journey. So if a student's like, my dream school is UT Knoxville. You can't be like, well, I'm a Tennessee Achieves mentor and they really focus on Tennessee Promise, right? Don't do that. Say, yes, I want to be supportive. How can I help you? What is it that you need? And again, realizing that Tennessee Achieves is here to answer any questions that you have. And so we really do try to be generalists here. In other words, we're not solely focused on TCATs or community colleges. We try to find answers for students regardless of the question that they asked. And so if you have students who are pursuing a 4-year degree or an out-of-state degree, I wouldn't pour cold water on that. I would 100% encourage them to retain their promise eligibility, because who knows what happens between January 24th and fall enrollment. And so just a solid plan B, I think, is always smart for students, but 100% continue working with those students, continue saying that you will be there, you will be that someone in their corner, and then lean on our team to help you navigate things that you may not find on the website or in the handbook, or we're happy to answer those questions for you. But at the end of the day, the goal of Tennessee Achieves is to give every student the opportunity to pursue post-secondary, regardless of where they want to land.
You teed up my next two questions perfectly, because help us define success for a mentor. When a mentor is getting to October of this year and they look back on their time serving students, what would we at Tennessee Achieves, and what should they consider to be a good, successful year?
Gosh, I think all the time about if you nudge one student, if you get one student over a barrier, you have no idea what that could mean for the student on the other side. This is, again, we are not working in widgets, we're working in human beings. And so it's just not a numbers game. This really is about meeting each student where they are. And the beautiful part of Tennessee Achieves, I think, is we work as a collective at such a large scale that your one student means a whole lot of movement across the state. Of every mentor that we have who sign up, who raise their hand, who register to be a part of this program, can help that one student, it could have a ripple effect, right? I mean, I think about, and Ben and Tyler know this story so well, but I was the first person in my family to go to college. No one in my family went to college. In fact, my mom dropped out of high school. And there were a lot of people along the way that helped me. And now I have 3 kids and they talk about going to college all the time. The cycle has been broken. And so it really does take one. So even if you're assigned 6 students and you're like, gosh, I really only helped one, and it really was only like 3 conversations, and you feel like that wasn't enough, in my mind, that's a really big deal. It's a win and a success, and you should view it that way.
I want to interject. I was just reviewing the chat a bit, and I was thinking, just reflecting on the fact that what other organization has this type of representation in a midweek webinar, right? People from Memphis to the Tri-Cities, Chattanooga, middle part of the state, Nashville. I mean, just all these places represented. To your point, Chrissy, just the collective impact of one piece of communication, one connection. Everybody does that. I mean, it just lifts the entire state up. So I had to interject.
I love it. I think Tyler might be frozen.
Tyler frozen.
Are you back, Tyler?
All right. Am I back here? I think I was cutting out there for a minute.
You're back. We can hear you.
It's okay.
All right. Apologies for that. Having some unreliable Wi-Fi here. Some great conversation there around success. I think one other thing I want to touch on here is it is likely the case, I think, especially with this year's group of students who have put their hand up and asked for a mentor, that mentors are going to get questions that they do not know the answer to, and they're a little bit unfamiliar. And we've got a lot of great resources. But what should a mentor do if they don't know the answer? And how can mentors get help as they deal with those trickier questions?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think reach out to our team, make sure that you have us all on speed dial, whether that's Tyler or Baylor or Ben or Graham or me. We are all happy to help you navigate, because inevitably there will be questions that you don't know the answer to. Students are so individualized in the challenges they face or the questions that they have. Some of you may have filed a FAFSA, some of you may have never heard of a FAFSA, and we don't really see that as your job of knowing all the answers. We see that as our jobs. We see you as that encouragement. I always tell students, like, it's so important to lean into the mentor, especially when it comes to normalizing college. Like, if you're a first generation student like me, just understanding and normalizing, like, maybe you don't do great on your first test. That's not a reason to drop out. Or maybe you need to change your major. Maybe what you thought you wanted to do wasn't actually the path for you. And that's okay too. If you can dig in, I don't know anyone who talks about their freshman first semester of college and are like, man, I really crushed that semester. I was so on top of everything. And so helping the students understand that. I will tell you, what we hear the most from students is that time management is so hard for them when they first land in college, the juggling of work and school and home and all of the things that they have going on. And so tips there would be life-saving in terms of keeping a student in college for many of our students. So those are the things that we really want you to lean into. But simple answer is ask us. We're happy to help you.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And at the end of the day, what our students need is encouragement. They need someone who's going to grab them by the hand and say, we can do this and we can overcome these barriers together. And so we can help with the nitty gritty details, but that personal relationship and that personal connection that you establish is going to be huge. And that's going to be the difference maker for our students when we get them over that finish line and into the door of a post-secondary institution next fall. One thing I want to ask, and then I'm happy to take some questions from the audience. Chrissy, when it comes to parents, should mentors consistently reach out to them? Should they only reach out to them once? What's the best way to handle parents, and should parents be supported through this process just like the students are?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, as I said at the top of the webinar, I do think initial conversation connection with the parent is critical. This is who I am. This is the role that I will play. I think that's an incredibly important piece of the puzzle. Over the years, I've mentored quite a few students, and I've had parents who were very involved. In fact, I felt like I was actually walking the journey with the parent more than the student. And I've had parents who were not involved at all and chose not to be involved and actually wished not to be involved. And so I really think that that's going to be something that the mentors need to navigate alongside the student, and make sure that, again, that introduction happens, and then let the parent know that you are there to be a resource to them as well. But while I would argue that the student needs consistent communication with you, I would let the parent take the lead on the communication front. So know who you are, provide them with your contact information. And if the parent wants to reconnect with you, allow them to take the lead versus with the student. I would always argue the mentor takes the lead there. And so that's an important, I think, distinction between communication with student and communication with parent.
I would add there too, parents can be a really valuable asset to you, particularly if you're finding their student is tough to reach. Hopefully they're more responsive this year, but if you find you aren't able to get in touch with them for a few weeks, nudge the parent and say, hey, I'm having trouble getting in touch with Johnny. Can you help me? I want to make sure he's on the right track and to answer whatever questions he may have. And a lot of parents will head across the house and say, hey, go ahead and respond to your mentor. And it helps to kind of kickstart the communication and build a stronger engagement with their students. So parents can be a valuable asset for you in that space. I would also add to that, you do not need to wait for the parents to respond to you to start reaching out to their students. It is best practice to reach out to the parents first. When you first get your student list, as Chrissy said, it is a good idea to reach out to the parents first, but you don't need to wait for the parents to confirm that you can reach out to your students. You can start reaching out to the students right away and start building those connections at the same time as you're reaching out to the parents. But with all of that said, I want to jump into some of your questions. I see the chat has been active. The Q&A section has been active. Ben, I know you've been monitoring it, so please bring any of those common questions our way because we are happy to address those.
Yeah, you guys, it's almost been you've not been looking at the chat, but you're sort of answering the questions as they're coming in. There's been a lot of questions around working with parents specifically, and also what to do if students aren't responding. So I think maybe spend a little more time on what that cadence should look like. If you have some students that aren't responsive, what's the follow-up look like? How often should they be trying to reach that student? What does that look like?
I mean, a mentor should go ahead, Chrissy.
No, you go.
Mentors should reach out to their students biweekly, and they should reach out to every student on a biweekly basis. We have found over many years that is what I describe as just the right amount of communication. It's not too much to where it is overbearing or overly involved, but it's not too distant to where a student might not know that you're there to help them. And so reach out to every student on a biweekly basis. We'll provide you suggested templates in each Monday email that you can use for this communication. But that will help to ensure your students always have support in their corner. And for those students who aren't responding, it is a consistent cadence so that they still have communication in their text inbox and their email inbox that they can respond to, engage with, and get answers to their questions. Do not become discouraged. Don't become let down if you find not every student is responding every time you reach out to them. What we hear oftentimes is that students just don't think to reach out until they do need help or until they do have a question. And so it might be a month between messages from your students, and that is okay. Ultimately, your role is to make sure that they're consistent, that the consistency is there, there's persistence in outreach to them, and the student constantly has the opportunity to engage with you and receive that personal support throughout their college-going journey. Chrissy, do you have anything to add here?
I would just say, again, sort of leaning into those very specific questions when you reach back out. Like if you're just like, hey, I'm Chrissy, again, your mentor, they might be like, yeah, saw that the first time, right? I will say that we did a focus group with students a couple of years ago, and they told us that oftentimes when they hear from mentors, they sort of see it as like a Google reminder. Like they see it, they don't necessarily feel like they need to respond. That's why that very specific questions like, where are you planning on completing your community service? Not have you done your community service, but where are you planning to do it? Can I help you find a place to complete that community service? What's your dream school? What's your plan B? What do you plan to major in? How excited are you? Have you ever job shadowed in that major? Right? Thinking of these questions that you could ask that would actually, number one, help you get to know the student, but number two, the student sees it on their phone and is like, oh, that's actually something I'm supposed to answer, as opposed to, okay, yeah, Tyler, you're my mentor. Great. Like I'll connect with you when I need something. I think it's making sure that they understand that you are looking for something back from them. And to be quite honest, I would just even say sometimes to them, I look forward to hearing a response from you, right? Like that upfront and direct with them, I think sometimes is sort of the magic antidote to the lack of communication from students.
And you do not only need to ask them about college and career related things. Ask them how their winter break was, ask them how their spring break was, what their summer plans are. Likely won't come as a surprise. 17 and 18-year-olds like to talk about things probably maybe a little more that are outside of school. So ask them about their hobbies, their favorite music, favorite band, whatever it may be, because they may respond to that, and that may give you an in to ask further questions about their career or college plans. Your role is not restricted to just getting to know the student on a college basis. You can talk about their career plans. You can talk about their major and hobbies and interests, because that's what an effective mentor-mentee relationship is. It's not just point A to point B. It's helping the student as a whole, and having those conversations is certainly a path to doing so.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. And I'll share just a really quick story. We have a longtime mentor with us who does a great job of getting to know her students every year. And she had a student a couple of years ago that was like really into bugs. Like, I don't know how she figured that out, but she figured it out. And when all the cicadas came, this young lady that she was mentoring had no cicadas in her yard, and our mentor had a lot of cicadas in her yard. And so she took like pictures of like the cicadas that were in her yard and sent it to the student and all of the things. And so to Tyler's point, I tend to be, 45 and lame. And so I'm like, ask them all the important like college questions, but sending them bug pictures also is a way to go if they're into bugs. But yes, asking them non-college things, I think, is also incredibly important. And I think it will help you get to know the student and actually connect with the student on a deeper level if that's the kind of relationship you're going for. Also, just really quickly, I see in the chat about like, when am I getting my student list? And I think it's important to know that, in this year is so different from the previous years because we're having mentor meetings or having our team meetings at the schools. Mentors are attending those meetings and walking through and helping us walk through an activity with students, but we're actually waiting to pair students and mentors until after those meetings when we can talk to the students face to face about the benefits of having a mentor. And so rather than everybody getting their list in November, like in years past, this is a rolling release of students. So every week, Tyler is pushing out number one, a text to students that says, who wants a mentor? And then from there, pairing the students with the mentors, and then you will get your list. And so there is sort of a delay, if you will. And then, the snow apocalypse of 24 has just annihilated our team meeting schedule the last few days. And so we are back in meetings as of yesterday, a handful, a smattering, and then today. And so we will start to roll that out much quicker. We've had to cancel, quite frankly, every team meeting we had scheduled the last week and a half.
Everything 1 week behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've answered pretty much all the chats. I've put one more notice in there. If anybody has any final questions, please let us know and we'll get those answered on here. But most of the questions that I've seen coming through have been regarding student lists and kind of what that timeline looks like. So you handled that, Chrissy.
Yeah, I see the question that just came over about if a student essentially the question asks like if the mentor confides or if the student confides in the mentor that they have something that feels like you are not equipped to answer, get that on our radar and we will help you navigate that. We do not have any expectation that you are out making referrals to anyone, whether that be a school counselor or any sort of therapist or any sort of official. Let us help you navigate that. That is not the role that we've ever wanted our volunteers to play. So if a student does confide in you something that you feel very ill-equipped to handle, let us know and we will work with you to get that student to a safe place, and we will go from there. But nothing we've ever wanted our mentors to have to navigate. Great question, though.
Yeah, that is a really good question. There was a couple more in there about even less serious things, but if they're unsure of where to point a student to find information about a TCAT or something along those lines that they're unsure about, just always reach out to us. We're never gonna. There's no dumb question. There's no bad questions. That's literally our jobs is to empower you to support students. So if you have a question you don't know the answer to, there's no bad questions. Please email us or connect with us, and we'll help you.
The first and last thing, all of us do every day is get in our inboxes and answer mentor questions. That's what we're here for. So please stay in touch with us and keep us posted too on just how it's going. As we try out this new model, as we get you paired to students who have asked for a mentor, it has been really exciting for me and helpful for me to get your feedback as we go through this. So keep us posted and keep that feedback coming our way because we want to hear it and we want to find out how we can improve the program and make it work well for you and for students. I would add we do have mentor hours sessions. You should be reading about these in your Monday email, but I always like to use this webinar as an opportunity to introduce these. This is our weekly office hours style session where Baylor and myself honestly just hop into a Zoom room. It's really informal. We don't have any proactive content planned, but it is our opportunity to engage with you all, answer your questions, and for mentors to engage with one others. So you have information in this week's Monday email on how you can join tomorrow's session. And I encourage you to do that because it's just a good informal opportunity to get your questions answered and to learn from other mentors what works and what doesn't. And this is by far one of my favorite things that has come from the pandemic. It's this mentor hours session because it's a good opportunity to engage with mentors from across the state and have conversations throughout the year. So know that that is an opportunity available to you, and we'd love to have you join one of those sessions. Ben, any final questions or anything to address before we wrap up today?
Oh, I think we've pretty much addressed all of them. I really appreciate everybody sharing their success stories. I think it goes to show that even if you haven't heard from a student right out of the gate and they've been just eager to work with you, kind of stick with them because you never know when they're going to be reaching out for help and we're going to have a chance to help them.
Yeah, we're so thankful, honestly. And to Tyler's point, we thrive on feedback. So please continue to let us know what's working and what's not working. And if you had something that you did with a student that you're like, gosh, this really got a great response from my student, share that with us because we want to share that far and wide with other mentors. But thanks for all you do. We're so thankful for all of you and truly could not do this work without you. So we appreciate you so much.
Yeah, really grateful to everyone.
Wednesday? Is it Wednesday? I think
it is Wednesday. Believe it or not, I know. It's flying by. Well, thank you all again for joining and for volunteering. I mean, you are at the heart of what we do in serving students, and we're so grateful to have all of you on board and for everyone being willing to pivot and try something new with us because we're excited about these changes. We're seeing them play out and hopefully working well for you, and we're excited to support you and students throughout the coming year. So let us know how we can help you. Reach out to us at mentors@tnachieves.org. And otherwise, we hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.